Dadnarok presents the Invasion After Show. This is Sean.
And this is Chris.
And tonight we are going to discuss the season finale, season one finale of Invasion. The title of this episode is. What is it? What's the title of this episode?
First day?
First day. It was so
First
generic.
day.
I was like, what was it again? But yeah, we are Dadnarok. We come here in peace every Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss Invasion. This is our last show for Invasion, this season at least. And we loved having you. We're going to talk about it, but we have other stuff in the works too. Later in this month, we're going to be doing the Book of Boba, which premieres at the very end of December. And we're also going to do the 8 Days of Witcher, which it's a bit of a different format because they're all dropping on Netflix at once. So we're going to kind of do some faster after shows on that one.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Looking forward to that. And I just want to say real quick, hi to Madeline. Hi, welcome back.
Hey, you made it. Thanks for
That's
stopping by,
awesome.
Madeline.
But we also have a project in the works that if you enjoy the after show of Invasion and everything, enjoy the show, the Invasion, keep your eyes out. If you don't follow us already on Twitter, go over to Twitter. It's going to be something that, if it all comes together, will be announced over there roughly in the beginning of the year, maybe the first week or two. And we're super excited about it. So if it actually happens, it's going to be amazing. It's a great opportunity for us in the show and for you guys to get a little bit of extra information
content.
or fun with the show.
Extra Invasion content, possibly.
There we go. I like it.
Speaking of Invasion, that's what we're here to do. There was news that dropped this week. We are officially getting Invasion Season 2. I wasn't sure. You and I were not sure if that would be a possibility.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
And not okay, I was shocked that they did it, and I was shocked that they did it when they did it. Because I figured they'd let the whole show kind of run its course and see if it had any legs beyond this finale that dropped, if there was any additional people talking about it. But I almost feel like this was already in the works. Like they already had 2 seasons at least agreed to based on how this show went the first season.
Yeah.
And they just decided to drop it to go ahead and pump up the finale of this season.
We will talk about the rest of this episode in particular, but I mean, they really laid some groundwork for some things happening in a possible season 2 or the season 2 that's on its way to us. So
will we get an invasion?
An actual invasion and invasion? I don't know. We were dogging on it throughout the season, but towards the end there, it got kind of harrowing.
Yeah, the past few episodes have if it started with this theme, it would have built and built and built, and it actually been a phenomenal show. Like we were always saying, we always felt like the show had so much potential and it just wasn't quite reaching it. These last few episodes, I'd even go back to Home Invasion. Really, from Home Invasion, I feel like it really started to actually achieve what we thought it could at the beginning.
Do you have any overall thoughts on the finale before we get into the details?
It was heart-wrenching at times. Many times. I mean, there's a whole scene that we're going to talk about. We even got a clip for that. As a father, I'm thinking, man, it hurts watching.
Mm-hmm.
Then Trevante's character, we learned more about him. So there was a lot of deep character development. And that was one thing this show did really well.
Yeah.
It developed their characters and you really get to know who they are. So when things started happening to them, you felt connected to them at that point.
Oh, for sure.
So that's what they did really well. But the name Invasion goes ahead and plays towards something else. And everyone else, there's an expectation when you have that type of name.
Yeah.
And it didn't reach that expectation that everyone went into it. Now, is that the showrunner's fault? No. That's kind of our fault as fans as well. We go into it thinking one thing and not quite achieving what we thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it. So, as far as this particular episode, we are going to go back to London first. We're going to talk about that. London is where we have Jamila, and we have Trevante, and we have Casper somewhat, but he looked like he died at the end of the last episode. And Spoiler alert, it doesn't really get too much better for him here throughout this episode. In fact, it gets a little mysterious, a little supernatural. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we get back to it, and Casper's being rushed back into hospital. Trevante's holding him. I guess he gets like incubated or intubated or whatever, so he can breathe.
Yeah,
And I mean, he's alive in the sense that his body's breathing, but they put him back in the is it an MRI or the CAT scan
right.
unit to go ahead and just check for brain activity, and there is none.
Yeah, that same nurse that was helping him get his seizure going, the last episode or two, she basically Trevante kind of forces her to, look at him, work at him, look at his brain scans,
Yeah,
and she scans his brain, and she says essentially he's brain dead. I mean, all the cells in his brain are gone, and he's not coming back. And at that point, Trevante and Jamila are just kind of breaking down. Trevante, who's going through this basically a second time, he's kind of remembering the traumatic experience that he had with his own son in the
yeah,
hospital. He mentions to Jamila how he held his son's hand as they turned the machines
they
off,
unplugged him.
life
Yeah,
support. Yeah, and Jamila just she's crying too. She just wants her friend back. She, she's
yeah,
having a tough time adjusting to this too. So it's a bad state here in London.
yeah. You see how connected she is to Casper. I mean,
Yeah,
she even puts in a cassette, and we see this similar scene while they're in the bus, where he takes
right.
out one of his earbuds and puts it, gives it to her, and she puts in there listening to music.
Yeah.
So she does the same thing. She lays next to him, and just the heart wrenching. I mean, they really, really did a great job of making you feel these situations right now.
Yeah, she's playing some, Smashing Pumpkins in that USB, Walkman thing. I don't know what that was, but I want one.
Yeah,
I would kinda like to, rock some music on some cassette tapes again. That would be fun.
yeah, that would actually be awesome. Oh, yeah, we got Madeline here. She disagrees with me. She said it's a writer's fault, not the viewer's expectations. Oh, okay.
Madeline has
That
a
what
point, I think, yeah.
you may have something there, but yeah. Well, we'll
It
leave that
it
for a
ah,
little
yeah,
bit.
it could be a mix. I mean, we're definitely wanting something out of the show, and it wasn't providing exactly what we wanted. So that's a give and take a lot of the time. So I think, and it's hard. Really hard. Any show, season one, it's
Yeah.
really rare where the season one of a show just like fires on all cylinders and is like wows you to the extent where you're like, oh my god, give me 7 more seasons of this.
Yeah,
And
well, Apple TV shows have been kind of doing that, so they're setting the bar so high
true,
between Lasso and the morning show, is it? And I mean, they've
yeah.
got. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's others out there as well that are like they're setting the bar so high for any show that goes on that platform, and if it doesn't achieve that, it's a disappointment.
So getting back to Casper here, do you think he's going to come back as a friendly ghost?
With his uncles, I don't know. Uh,
Oh,
no, no, I'm gonna
it's the
say
last time we
yes.
can make that joke. I know there was something weird and
I
supernatural going on
re-
at the end of this
I
episode.
really think yeah, because once they cut away and he's laying there actually like in the morgue,
Yeah,
it looks like he's
he don't look
about ready
dead to
to.
me. He looks
No, I don't think he was
pretty
about ready to
warm.
take a deep breath
Yeah,
and like sit up, and which would
right.
freak me the hell out. But I don't think we're done with him, and there's not gonna be any explanation to why he's alive or what's going on. I mean, it's gonna be one of those supernatural type things.
Is it like yeah, this is one part of the episode where I'm sure, we'll lead into things here at going into season 2 now, but I was wondering like is this a dream? Is he actually alive on that slab, right? Is he
Is this
um
another seizure?
is this another seizure or is his consciousness connected to this alien network, right? And that's actually like where he is right now. When he stands up and he sees himself fully clothed and he walks and sees
Hanada's
Hanada's
dad.
father, which was
Yeah,
like,
uh-huh.
what?
Yeah, that whole yeah, no, but I mean, later on, they specify Earth.
Mm.
Is he like? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, wow. How was Hanada's dad in any way connected to him?
Yeah, and Hanana's dad gives Casper the compass, just like he was telling Mitsuki the story about when he
Yeah,
gave his daughter Hanada the compass when she was a little girl.
it was
Uh, wh-
basically follow it home or wherever
yeah,
whatever home would be, follow that
which is like
direction.
how does Casper know about this? How does Casper know what this guy looks like, about the story, about this significance of this compass, or this compass, and like how it, I don't think the aliens know about that. Like the only way that I think that he would know about that is if he was in tune with the alien network and the aliens knew about that. But I don't think the aliens know about that.
Yeah, I don't
I don't know.
know. Yeah, Madeline thinks he's alive.
Yeah,
Yeah, and let me see what else she says here. I think they have an explanation of tied aliens. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it needs to be explained for
y-
sure.
yeah, that's kind of like what you were just saying there. It's I don't know. It's one of those questions, one of those loose ends that they left. Basically, I think Casper is honestly easily the linchpin of what's going on right now,
Right.
and I don't think he's going anywhere. I think somehow he's going to come back. It's almost like he went. I'll use this as an easy example. Black Panther, when they go
Mm.
ahead and take the juice from the flower,
Oh yeah,
and then
yeah,
they're
yeah,
buried up and they go into the astral planes of the ancestors.
yeah. Essentially, their breathing is reduced to being to the point of almost dead. Yeah, where they're in like
Yeah.
a coma. Yeah.
So almost to that extent. Like where did he project himself to? And then he'll
Mm.
come back and all of a sudden he's back alive like nothing ever happened.
The
And
fact that he hasn't been like autopsied on that table and it still looks to be in one piece, like he's coming back.
yeah, something's
Yeah.
he's coming back.
I have
Which
expected his eyes to dart awake like in this episode, the way the camera was just like panning on him for
that
that
would have been a
long.
great ending, honestly,
Yeah,
to his story. If all of a sudden they come up and they kind of pan over him and they look down on him and his eyes open. After
right.
we've seen him in that like astral plane or wherever he was at the time,
Yeah,
that would have been great. Then they would have cut away from him because that would have been a great cliffhanger, knowing there's a season two for
yeah.
his story.
So that's about it as far as Casper's portion of the story. That kind of we've talked Casper's perspective up here through the end of the episode. Basically, Jamila, after she says goodbye to Casper, they share that moment where she puts the earbud in his ear and they play the Smashing Pumpkin song. Been some good music here on Invasion here the last few episodes. But yeah, she walks out into the hallway afterwards, and finally her mother finds her and they embrace and they're hugging. And God, this whole time I've been like, what about Jamila's family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the emotion of her
Oh,
mother
man.
finding
No way.
her after all this, not knowing what's going on? Last time she heard, she was at school going on a school trip, and then all of a sudden the
Right.
bus is gone, the teacher's gone. None, you can't get a hold of any of the kids. You can't get a hold of the school. You don't know what's. As a parent, I would be freaking out. Like I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'll be in full out panic mode.
Do you think the other kids are still sitting on that chocolate truck in the middle of the road in the rural
I
England?
just pictured the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Just
They're
they
on
became the
another
Oompa
adventure,
Loompas.
totally. They're having like a sugar shock in a truck somewhere. That's
Oh
wild.
man, yeah. I mean, they may have been picked up by some. I bet you someone more likely would have, for some reason, would drove by or tried to
Yeah.
drive by or something. Yes, I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, they would have been fine. But
Well, interestingly enough, in the next scene, we actually get Trevante, what he's doing, and he's kind of steps outside, and the world is partying, the world is celebrating,
yeah,
and there's honestly a lot more people in the streets than we've seen thus far. Since the beginning of this show, we've been hanging with our characters, and there've not been these like masses of people. People have been in hiding, people have been escaping, people have been dying. The streets have been pretty bare for
yeah,
pretty much more than half the season. So this was kind of a juxtaposition and a jarring one. I thought these alien slug things that had come down had killed like a lot of people. That was my assumption, and I'm sure they
yeah.
have, but I didn't think there'd be this like grand party like within an hour of this thing coming down.
I think it was such a jubilant scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So when they see the seeing the nuke go off isn't. It was something that would have been easily seen by
sure.
everybody.
Yeah,
And then seeing that fireball fall from from the sky, it
right.
was. I mean, I would have been in the streets too. I don't own a gun. I don't have fireworks. I would have
Yeah.
found something. I'd have been like Yosemite Sam. I would have been having a blast.
I think there was Fight the Power playing in the background. Somebody was blasting it. Yeah, it was really funny. People were like going nuts, which understandably they would be. Trevante has a tough time of it at first because I think he's feeling that loss of Casper and not
Mhm.
really realizing. And then it takes him a minute to observe his surroundings, and he sees that little girl with her family, and he finally
Yeah.
is like kind of snapping out of this trauma, and he finds the nearest phone
Well,
to
yeah, when
make
that
his
little girl
arrangements.
waved at him, I was like,
Yeah,
that's another heart melting scene because
right.
she's with her mom and dad, and now knowing Travante's past, now knowing he had the little one that that died in the hospital, the whole
Yeah,
thing, and then her acknowledging him and waving at him, that's another one of those. Man, it just kind of hurts the heart.
it does. Yeah. And before he makes his way out of there, Jamila comes out, and they have a bit of a confrontation, because Jamila just wants him to keep, I guess, fighting for Casper, and he's essentially not over it, but he kind of is explaining away what he just saw with Casper stopping those aliens
Yeah,
in mid track. He's kind of saying, it's coincidence. It was the nuke that did it. So she gets frustrated with him. She ends up handing him a Casper's notebook, which he takes with
yeah.
him.
Well, I think he is trying to convince himself
Yeah,
that it was a nuke because we
right.
see him with a conversation later, to get his transport back home to the states. He basically tells the guy he's got all the information he needs. Just put me in a plane. I'm gonna go home.
Yeah,
Uh, I think because of the situation he's in now, he's trying to compartmentalize it
yeah,
for his own mental well being because he doesn't want to. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to even explain that to get it out, just
yeah,
because his trauma already with his child, his trauma with his unit over in Afghanistan.
yep.
Now what he just had happen with Casper, he's got to lock it all up and put it in a box and throw it in the ocean
You're right.
just to be able to move on to get home
Yeah,
to his family that that he wants to get to so badly.
yeah. I'm gonna call an audible. Maybe since we're already talking about Travante, let's just keep talking about him. So yeah, he finally he continues his mission basically. I mean, this is what he wanted to do from the get-go. Once he decided to leave Afghanistan, he was like, I've got to get home. Once the last, end of the last phone call with his, I guess, wife or fiance that he'd last talked to, he's like, I'm coming home. And he was very determined, but there were no planes in the air. And this whole mission with Casper and Jamila kind of sidetracked him here in the UK. But now he's free up. He gets on the phone immediately. He calls up the I guess the nearest United States Air Force base or base there in the UK, and I guess there are planes flying out, and he's like, yes, sir, I'm coming.
Yeah. And then, yeah, the next time we see him, and we see him like completely like, okay, great, I'm heading home. You
Yeah,
see that like level of like relief hit him.
he's excited. Yeah,
Yeah.
we see a little bit of happiness come from Trevante, which we haven't not seen
I haven't
maybe
seen him
the
since we
entirety of the
first
season.
well, no, and we've seen him when we first met him when he's
Right,
walking
true.
through and they're barbecuing and they're playing football.
Yeah,
Back before the whole first incident took place with him.
yeah. But yeah, he's getting debriefed by this guy who does introduce himself. I didn't get the character's name, but he had a lot of gravitas. This guy that was interviewing him with the laptop.
Yeah.
Um, Something was telling me we may see this guy again at some point.
He's in
Uh,
some type of intelligence.
yeah,
I mean, very, very, very clearly intelligent. He was trying to completely debrief, Trevante and get all the information that he had. Basically asking him why did he survive and his whole unit not survive. Asked him, I think
right,
he went as far as asking about the wound because of blood, which we haven't gotten anything about. Why?
right.
Yeah,
Which has kind of
why?
been this side mystery, which they just haven't addressed this whole time. Like he seemed pretty injured, yet he's been okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I would have think infection or something would have taken in or
right,
yeah, he would have had some type of issues with it, which makes me believe something to do with the alien type of technology or whatever he was hit by with them. It
maybe
I
it's
I don't
stalled,
know.
whatever that would be. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe it's something they'll address later, or maybe it's something they'll completely
it just
disregard. I don't know.
yeah, if we're going to the next season, he got home, he got medical attention,
Yeah.
bing bang boom, we're moving on. You know.
One another thing that this guy who's debriefing Trevante mentioned is terraforming, which is
Yep.
something that I thought, many episodes ago with all this black ooze and stuff that's being spread all over. You see these things. There was one time where Jamila and Casper were hiding and doing some stealth around that building, and they just watched one of these synthetic creatures, like they were basically just like pulsating on top of this car, releasing all this gunk. And that seems to be what it was. It was like this, whatever this gunk they were spreading about was like releasing this, what we consider a toxin in the air, but it seems like they were trying to change our environment to
They were
more
making
suit
it so
the.
the rest of them can come down and
Yeah,
actually harvest our planet, essentially.
right. Which is very interesting to get some officially get some of those nuggets of intel that we've
Yeah.
been kind of sorely missing the entirety of this season.
Yeah,
But that
because I
was
was
cool.
actually last week comparing it to Pacific Rim in the
Yeah,
exact same manner. First few come through to go ahead and eliminate the issues. The
yeah,
second one, the larger ones do exactly what we were told in this episode that the aliens were doing is terraforming, so they could strip the planet of resources.
yeah. So Trevante finally gets on a plane. He's just sitting there, wants to be silent. I'm sure he just wants to like
Oh,
sleep.
this always
And this
happens.
guy, it doesn't matter. Even at the end of the world, you'll always get a passenger next to you that just wants to talk. And he does. He's like, "Oh man, can you believe I just was supposed to be gone 2 days, and now this? How long you been gone?" And Travante's been gone for a whole full 2 years. We learned.
Yeah, I thought he
But
said 3.
it may have been 3. I don't know. I thought it was
It
2,
was
but
2 or
maybe
3. Yeah,
either
if
way,
you
it's
guys are
been
watching,
quite
you
a
remember.
while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Either way, I was like Jesus because I thought he said 3 because I'm thinking, wow, you know, you were actually deployed for 3 years.
right.
Most deployments are a year, and in some cases, in the extent it can be up to another year, so 2 years. 3, it's almost like he volunteered to stay away from a problem at home.
Yeah. Let's see. Madeline says 2.
It-
Thank you, Madeline.
there we go.
it was
I
it
am.
was 2.
You are siding with Sean way too much in this episode. That's messed up.
But yeah, he finally gets home, right? He gets in front of his house. He's got one of those keys under a rock. He pulls out. He walks in, and he's just glad he's like touching the walls. You could tell he's just like amazed to be even standing there at home.
Yeah,
And we finally get a full-on shot of the actress who plays his ex-wife or fiance or whoever this is to him.
yeah.
They definitely had a strained relationship. We learned a little bit more about it, but a familiar relationship to be sure. The way she talks to him later and the
Well,
forgiveness
that
that's
first
there.
like embrace, they
Yes,
were
yeah.
both so happy to see each other,
And that
and
was jarring
then
too because they were so happy, and then when basically she pulls away when he starts to say, "I love you. Did you get my messages?" And she pulls away immediately, like she's been hurt before, and she doesn't want to hear this stuff.
I don't think she
Um,
got any of his messages.
no, I don't think she did.
I don't
No,
think she got any of the messages. He obviously had letters that had to have been prior to everything taking place.
right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean the immediacy of her pulling back and like you said was jarring. Then they start talking, and it's almost like they were talking in code.
Hmm.
Because they didn't want to say specific things, but they wanted to make sure the other person knew exactly what they were saying, trying to avoid a fight or an argument by saying it
Right.
as softly as they could.
Yeah, like theoretically, if I were to do this, then what? Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, then he said like he's going to get a new job, which to me told me he was going to get out of the military and he was going to
Yeah,
stay home.
which told me that, basically the time after the tragedy of losing their son, he reenlisted or went back
Yeah. He was
and
using it to
as a
cope.
crutch to
He,
cope.
he yeah,
Yeah.
he was coping. His way to coping was getting away, but she needed him there to help her cope as well. And
Yeah.
he
And
just ran from it.
she does not, you can tell clearly the way she reacts to him saying, I'll get a new job. She did not like him being back in the military. All she wanted was for him to be there. And
She probably had a fear of losing him too. You think about it,
sure.
if she just lost their son,
Yeah.
I mean, now if he's over there in that region, which is very dangerous for any military, if she loses him too, that could be. I mean, that would be jarring.
And once he does say, he's gonna get a new job, that's when they embrace again, and she's completely happy, you can tell. And they're happy, he's happy too. They're happy together. I'm wondering though if, Trevante has been so close with he had such a unique interaction with the aliens and with Casper this season. I wonder if he's gonna get pulled into this thing back again and not be able to, well, I mean, you know, I I don't know if there's
What
living happily ever after with a giant spaceship that comes down again, but
what if this happened? And this would be a tragedy for
yeah.
Trevante. But what if with this thing that we see that we're going to watch here in a minute takes place, what if she dies in front of him and he couldn't do anything about it? And that's what pulls him back into it.
I don't know. I don't want him to have suffer any more. He suffered so much so far, even before invasion, during invasion. I don't want potentially. You were always thinking dark. What if potentially this really dark thing happens?
I mean, there's got to be something that pulls him back in. And I don't want to
Yeah.
see him just run from her again after making the promise of saying, I'm going to stay by your side now.
Well, I'm wondering if he sees something in this notebook that clicks for him, where he's like, "Oh my gosh! Like I have this information that I have to share with the world," and that's how he gets pulled back in.
Or I wonder
Because
if the actual story with Anisha and Trevante actually somehow become one line. And
right,
then
that could be
they kind
too.
of stay together.
Well, there was a point in this notebook where, basically you could tell maybe it's a few days, it's some time has passed. They get dressed, they go out to the beach, they're going to spend some time together, Trevante and his fiance, which I don't know if we got a name just yet. But they're just going to be with each other, enjoy each other's company. As she walks off, he sits down with the notebook that was in the back of his truck, and he's going through it. He's seen some of the, some of the just, teenage drawings that Casper had made, and then he reaches the picture that he saw initially with the skull logo of his group there, the military
Yeah.
group that he was in. And then he sees this basically this kanja written like over itself so many times. And one was clear enough to where he was able to get translation of it, and it was Japanese. It looked like Japanese for star,
Yeah.
which has been strange because this entire time we've been hearing nothing but Wajo, which I guess is Japanese for castle, over and over again in the transmission from the alien craft. And this time we're getting the Casper writing the kanji for star over and over and over and over again. I thought for sure it was going to be Wajo, but it
Yeah, I
ends up
thought so
kind of
too.
being a curveball.
But it connects a bunch of episodes together. You got the star that was put on Matsuki's ceiling by a Hanada.
Mm-hmm.
We see that star again come in place in this episode with Matsuki putting it in a box, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, that is an actual storyline that's kind of connected everything as well.
Yeah,
Now that it's popping up here, so I mean they've used Wajo many times. Now they're using Star, so I like how they're starting to connect things amongst all the storylines.
yeah. So after that, his fiance comes back and they see something in the sky. And at first, we have no idea what they're looking at, but they look pretty shocked, confused. It's
I think
whatever it is.
terror
Like a,
would
yeah,
have been
terror.
the word I wanted. Let's see what they were actually terrified of.
Dun dun dun.
Dude, that ship looks fantastic.
It
I
does,
mean,
yeah.
the
That was the
look of that. I mean, they should have done this like episode 5. They should have given us a little. I mean, granted, I already said that I like the character development they've done in the show. And that's been one of the fantastic things about it.
yeah.
But if they gave this, I wouldn't even say 5. What if they gave it to a 7, which would have built, a real like movement towards the finale.
Yeah, or some kind of shot like this. I
Yeah,
think that's a part of what has been missing in the show too, is that really the only um, alien presence we felt are these like ooey gooey venom like monsters on the ground.
yeah,
Which in itself is kind of can be like a horror movie kind of deal where you don't know what you're up against. But when you think alien invasion, you think like the posters of that Anisha and her kids are running on the highway, running away from this giant spaceship in the sky, right? I thought we would have more of that kind of thing.
yeah.
But here's the thing: when they look at that up, this is the final shot of this episode and the final shot of this season. When they're looking at this thing, you can tell that ship is a lot bigger than the ships that we've seen thus
Oh yeah,
far. It's like compared to the ship that was down in Trevante and the members of his group were shooting at in the first episode or two. This thing, you can tell by the atmosphere, is that this thing is huge. I mean, the size of a
this is the
city.
mothership
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. So I don't know if these things that came down originally are synthetics that are in charge of like terraforming the planet. We may be dealing with a whole different group of biological aliens that may be
Yeah.
able to communicate in different ways. Like, who knows? I just feel like we've seen one form of these aliens, but it's not all of what's coming.
Yeah, that final shot of the show or the season here, had me going, "Whoa,
Yeah,
okay." Now it piqued my interest even more, and that's why I say that if they give us a little earlier, I think the show would have caught more momentum.
yeah.
But we didn't. That wasn't the only ship we seen in this episode. I mean, we get a shot from Brazil, and it says Amazon rainforest, Brazil, Earth. Really?
As
We need
opposed to
we
the rainforest and some other in Mars. I don't know.
Let's check this one out real quick and we'll talk about it as well. Kind of combine the two here. Dude, that ship's no joke either.
Yeah.
That ship is pretty large too. So if that one's that big laying, in Brazil, in Earth or on Earth, uh,
Right. You know
uh,
what I took that as is when the ship in the sky was actually hit with the nuke and Anisha and her kids are looking up in the sky, you actually see that big chunk flying through the
do you
atmosphere.
think it's a part of that ship?
I think it's a part of that ship. I think that's that chunk that crash landed, and that's where it crash landed in the Amazon. That's what my take was anyway. Um,
I see that didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, if it's one large ship, that nuke would take off a part of it, and the ship wasn't even dead. There's a later part within that that segment there that for some stupid reason we decided we wouldn't go inside it. I mean
well,
that's
yeah, let's
no
put it
that's
because that's what we do, man. Humans, we need to explore and figure things. But I mean, we do, right? We need to make sure that we're safe after that occurrence, after that invasion. Everybody's
I'm just
just
not going to be
assuming
the
and dancing
schmuck
in the
going in.
streets. Right. It's true.
but
But yeah,
we see
something's going on with that ship in Brazil too.
Yeah, and it's still live. We see it,
Yeah.
or it's still there's something still happening. So we see that like vibration, or like we seen it in the little banjo tree where the stand was moving when they were playing Wajo loud.
Yeah.
Just like what the rock that or the piece of whatever that Luke has, where it's moving. The ship is doing the exact same thing. So we are far from done with that ship. That ship is going to have a lot more to say in what's going to happen next season, along with that massive, massive ship that's
Yeah.
out over the ocean.
Let's see. Madeline says, I thought what Sean thought about the ship in the Amazon. There you go. Me and Madeline are synced for
You're on
this
the
episode.
yeah, you're on the same wavelength here. So you know what, guys, if you're still with us here and you've been watching from the beginning, thanks. First and foremost, thanks for finding us. Thanks for listening to us. Kind of just babble on about a show that we've been hot and cold on the whole time. But
Right.
I mean, to be honest with you guys, but if you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Check out the rest of the after show for Invasion if you haven't already, and then be sure to check us out in the future here.
Should we move on to Anisha and the family?
Yes, this was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
This is the part of the show as a father. It was hard to watch for both, but for both and for Sarah and for Luke, and even for Anisha. Us being parents, could you imagine being in that spot where you got to comfort them, and then you're also hurting as well. Even though as much as that her and Ahmad went through, that pain's got to be real too.
Well, and also Anisha knows or has this gut feeling that this isn't over, right? So
Yeah,
it's just something we're going to deal with. So she's still in like survival mode. But yeah, so we start out where Anisha is exploring the woods where Ahmed had passed. Basically, she sees the blood stain, she sees the shot in the tree, and she knows this must be the spot where he was shot and apparently drug away because Ahmed's body is nowhere to be found. But then the kids, they're there with her too, and she has to explain to them that essentially they get it. The whole time, Luke, Sarah's questioning things. Sarah's younger, but Luke has kind of taken this role up of being the no BSer. Essentially, he's
yeah.
just putting truths out there, and every time that mom is trying to put some sugar coating on this thing, he calls her out on it throughout this entire episode.
Honestly, that would, if I was her, I'd be getting so irritated. I'm
Yeah,
like,
right.
okay, I'm trying to make this easier, at least on your sister.
Yeah.
Shut it.
I know you know what's going on. Just, let me deal with this how I can. But so the kids know Ahmed's no longer with them. Ahmed's passed, and God, that's got to be so tough. But yeah, Luke, there's a scene where they essentially give Ahmed a burial, not the proper one, but whatever they can do to kind of move on.
Yeah, just to go ahead and say their goodbyes.
Yeah.
I love you, Daddy. You taught me how to ride a bike, and you got me ice cream even when Mommy said no, and you were the bad breath monster. It was funny, and I love you. That was great, sweetheart. Dad.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Dude, that's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, that's struggling. And then in that same scene, Anisha essentially tells Luke, you don't have anything to be sorry for,
Mhm.
and Luke walks away. Luke is dealing with some stuff, man. I think he's blaming himself for his dad's death somehow for some reason.
Well, I think he
Um,
thinks that piece of, like, alien thing that he has is what led to his
mm,
death. And
yeah, because later in the episode, he does try to like throw it away or something into the woods, doesn't he?
yeah, he
Um,
throws it. I mean, he goes back after that whole scene takes place.
yeah,
Uh, they all go back to this, like, house that they found just for some shelter for the night.
a little bit more B&E.
Yeah. And he went back and basically to the site without Anisha knowing. He snuck out on his own,
Right.
which he's making a habit of doing. And making a habit of kind of going off on his own.
Yeah. Well, they do.
And
They they find this house, and Luke finds a TV, and to this point, you don't know that Anisha and the family know that they won, or that like everything is apparently like safe, and people are celebrating out in the streets. But
yeah,
Luke sees this on a news report on TV, and he's like, "Why are we still hiding? Why are we? What are we doing?" And Anisha like straight up tells him like, "No, we're not done. We're still in survival mode. We can't trust people." She's basically going all Sarah Connor on him, and he disagrees. He's like he's over it. He doesn't want to hide and be a survivor. He wants to go back to how things were. And the
I'm like,
two of
hold on.
them and Anisha and Luke are having a struggle.
I'm like, slow your roll. You're 8. You're following. You're not doing as you want. You are gonna fall in line, and
Yeah.
you're gonna trust me. That's pretty much. I mean, I think at that point I may have dropped the hammer. As being dad and knowing my own personality and how far I can be pushed with something, I think there would have been a come to Jesus moment for him at that point with me. I'm like, you know what? Knowing Sarah's in the other room, it would have been one of those things. I would probably gotten down on a knee, grabbed his shoulders, and talked lightly but very firmly, like, this is what we have to do. You've seen what they did to him. You've seen the people in the house. You've seen everything so far. We need to be cautious.
Well, what you're describing is talking to him like an adult, when Anisha is still in the mode of talking to him as her little boy, as her son, as another kid that needs to be coddled and, told, no, you just do as I say. But Luke has grown up essentially
Yeah,
in this last week. Luke, because he's had to. Not only has
he's
he
had
had to
no
deal
choice.
with, he's had no choice. Yeah. Not only has he had to deal with this huge world shattering alien invasion, but he's had to like a lot of times like pick up the pieces with Sarah and stuff because his mom and dad have been at each other's throats here the last
Yeah,
week. So he's he's speaking up to Anisha. I kind of agree with him too. The thing, you know what I mean? Like when he says like why are we here? Why can't we just go back to the people out in the streets that are celebrating? Like not you can't go back to the way things were. Like we
yeah.
can't just go back to our house and go back and mend our broken family, but we can at least not be in this
hiding
strange house hiding from people. Like, he's confused.
because
And
mommy's
Anisha
voice
doesn't really have
says,
a great
yeah.
answer, as far as I could tell. I mean, Anisha's just still like bugging out.
I think she's still completely shook too. I
Yeah,
mean, so I mean, it's fresh from them being chased through the woods,
right.
and then Ahmad dying. You know, not dying, being murdered. That's essentially, let's call it what it is.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's still right there. So she's still. I mean, her mental place can't be right either. Think about it. She had, a great family, great, life. Everything was going well for her. Then she finds out Ahmad, going behind her back with another woman, and then the invasion happens, and then she's trying to keep him in line and keep him there for the kids, keep that portion, as normal as possible for the children.
right.
And then this happens, and you've seen fences kind of being mended over time between the two.
Hmm.
And then that takes place. And it was kind of his final, like, I'm sorry, by him telling him to run, because he knew what was going to happen to him
Right.
if he
He
called her
did.
by her real name and told her to run.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of his goodbye to them. But the kids, man, the kids, I mean, we've talked about Sarah in the past,
Yeah.
and with Tara playing Sarah there, that rhymes quick, and how realistic, I mean, they are
Yeah.
when they're talking, like when she's saying goodbye and the bad breath monster and
Oh, I
and
know all that
everything.
stuff, that endearing
Uh,
stuff between, a little girl and her father. Yeah, that was heart wrenching.
I mean, I mean, we both have daughters,
Yeah.
so I mean, it just I felt all that, and then
Yeah.
I have an 8-year-old son, and hearing him say I'm sorry for something that he really didn't do, but he feels guilty. He
Yeah.
feels like it was his fault that this took place. I mean, that whole scene there, I'm taking notes, and I'm having a hard time looking up. I'm looking at the computer. I'm doing what I'm doing just because they are being successful at making me feel
Yeah. Feeling them
what's happening.
feels. Yeah, I gotcha. So yeah, there's that kind of confrontation in this house between Luke and Anisha. They finally go to bed. This is where Luke sneaks out. He goes to chuck that alien rock through the woods, and he's looking up at the sky, and there's like aurora borealis, the kind of stuff that you see typically in the northern lights. And it just happens to be here in, I guess they're still in upstate New York. I don't know. Um, but yeah, which is weird to be seeing it that far south. I don't know if it has something to do with the
I
explosion up in space.
Well, I know we can see. I live in Dayton,
Hmm.
Ohio. I know there's parts, and there's been times where we've been able to see portions of it. If you're out at the right time, we've been able to see as far south as us here in Dayton, Southwest Ohio. So if they're in New York, upstate New
Hmm.
York, uh, it's probably more common, but not like normal.
Oh, I see. Aurora borealis.
So I mean, I can buy that because I think it's absolutely possible. Now,
Yeah.
why he do you? I didn't remember, or I don't remember. Why did he try to retrieve that piece of alien after he chucked it? 'Cause he threw it, and then he looked down, and then he went after where he threw it.
He's probably I mean, he's conflicted clearly because I mean, this alien rock has seemed to bring him nothing but pain and anguish thus far, and he knows people seem to be after it because they were being chased through the woods because I think they have this thing. And at the same time, it was also the thing that saved them, but because Anisha was able to kill one of the aliens from it. So it's like,
Mm,
if I can use it to defend myself, I don't need to be checking it through the woods. I need it on my person. So
yeah,
he's conflicted. Like, he had second thoughts.
yeah, no, that's man, yeah, like you said, I feel bad for Sarah because always feel, you know, what she's going through. Like it's coming crossed.
Yeah.
Luke, there's so much depth, and like he's 8, but yet all, like you've already even said how much he's grown up,
Right.
and then just the immediacy of like him saying, I'm sorry. It's I don't know that whole, like I've
It
been
was a
so hot
tough.
and cold
Yeah.
on that storyline, but the
Right.
kids are always spot on for me.
Right. And it was a tough. There was a lot of it's kind of tough to say what's going to happen and be going on, because we're not done with Anisha and her kids.
Oh, not by
We're definitely
far.
going to see more of them in season 2. Like, how is this Black Rock going to be used? Is it going to be, are they going to be joining up with any, like you mentioned, are they going to be joining any other the characters that we know from the show? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because when we leave them here, Anisha is definitely, like I mentioned, in Sarah Connor mode even more than ever. Like, not only is she, like, running with her kids, but she is like actively hiding them from the world at large,
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, the last shot we get of her is her realizing Luke is gone.
Yeah.
Luke actually, that's when Luke was still out in the forest, kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah. So that's where we leave Anisha and Sarah and Luke for now. What about Mitsuki? She had kind of an interesting journey this episode too.
This whole storyline with Mitsuki is so just infuriating, if that's the right way to put it.
I was going to say confusing, but infuriating, I guess. Okay.
Because this was the storyline that I loved. I mean,
Yeah.
we've gone over this a few times, and it just feels like it's just spinning its wheels and not really going anywhere. It's just
Right.
stuck in it. It's just a loop of the same thing. Because I mean, we even get to a point where somehow the internet's back up, and she connects back to that satellite and tries to finish what she did when she was at JASA.
I don't know what she was doing, as far as I didn't get what that was about, like why she was logging back in and pointing the satellite in a certain direction. Maybe just listening into something. Maybe she had an idea about something. I don't know. She spends most of this episode in a trance. She's like walking away. She listened to Hanada's father talk about the story about the compass. That's in the beginning of the episode. That's how we find out about that. Then afterwards, she goes to, back to Hanada's old place where she lived at when she was a little girl. I guess packs some of her things up and takes it with her, right? And then she goes on a walkabout. She just starts walking. She has this compass in hand, and she just starts, I guess, walking north. And
Yeah. Well, that
you
goes
can,
back to the story that her Hanada's dad was telling Matsuki when they were in the car about the compass.
yeah,
How she would take the compass everywhere, to the playground, anything she was doing. She didn't want to play with regular toys. She was always playing with the compass itself.
right. And she's walking, and the world around her is continuing. I mean, there's like construction workers. One pulls one of these, dead synthetic creatures that they've been dealing with. I guess it's dead. I'd be freaked out, dude, because it's like, couldn't they just like wake up at any moment?
Yeah, what if they just rebooted them?
How do you know they're dead? Like,
Yeah.
because they're not breathing. We don't know anything about
Were
them.
they ever really breathing?
Right. So it's like, for them to be all like sprinkled throughout the entirety of the planet, and they're just, sitting on the ground next to you. That must be terrifying. They can just wake
Yep.
up at any
Nope.
point.
Nope. I
Yeah.
would be burning things. I'd be like, I'm
Yeah.
having a bonfire. Come on, get
Right.
them all together. We're gonna do some gasoline and boom.
She runs into this monk or ex-monk, this young guy. You could tell that he was living the lifestyle of a monk in a temple, but he's kind of had a crisis of faith, and he's just outside sitting by the railroad tracks smoking a
What?
doobie. And
Okay. Was it only me? But when I seen him sitting there and he confronted Matsuki, did you have like, oh crap, this isn't going to be good moment? Like
yeah,
this is going to be like a bad character for her to run into?
right, because he's being kind of creepy. Yeah, he's being like, "Hey, where you going?" That kind of stuff. Like, where we just nowhere to stay tonight. Like, he was being kind of a creeper. Yeah, for sure. I got those
Yeah.
vibes.
Yeah. I thought it was something bad was going to happen. And really nothing bad happened from it. He just brought her back and dropped some truths on her that, he learned as a monk.
He
And
was
how
fairly
everyone,
straightforward. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he opens up the temple to her, and apparently the rest of the monks either fled, or the ones that stayed were on like a hunger strike, and they ended up dying just from starvation. And he was really the only one to survive by eating chips and smoking pot and drinking
Yeah,
beer.
there's
And
somebody. He was living the good life right there. He's got a place to live. He had
yeah.
some weed to smoke, some
Yeah.
Doritos, and he apparently internet.
That's his new philosophy, is that he's just going to enjoy life, what life has to offer, live in the now. And Mitsuki's not so sure about this, because she's kind of stuck in memories, right? She's stuck, having Hanada in her head. And later, I don't know if she learns a lesson from this monk about living in the moment, but later, after she leaves this temple, she ends up, it looks like she burns Hanada's denim
The
jacket in
jacket,
the
yeah,
fire.
because when she went back to her apartment, Nana's apartment, she took the jacket.
Yeah.
And one thing we didn't talk about is, once again, the star showed up. and
Right.
she put the star in that box where she took the actual compass out. But yeah, I wasn't sure if she was going to burn it or not. But yeah, as soon as you seen the fire, you knew. Okay, I think I know where this is going. And sure enough, they followed through with her burning it. And
Yeah.
what is that her way of saying goodbye? You think?
Yeah, I think so. In lieu of having a proper burial, a proper ceremony, I mean, Hanada's lost in space. I mean, this is the only thing that you can do essentially is take something personal of hers and give it a bit of a eulogy. But that's how I, understood it is that she's kind of moving on from this and moving on to the next chapter in her life.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, they did. We seen that, and then next time we see her, she's like has her laptop open, and I think it was in the communications like area because it wasn't at JASA, it was in that different location where
Yeah,
that satellite was, and we see her logging back into that, which how she got access is beyond us. But
right. How she still has working codes.
yeah, and she was able to. I think she was pointing the satellite back to where she found the distress signal. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, she definitely was moving the satellite. The satellite moved in place, and then she was listening in on what was happening after, or she was listening in for, I guess, a signal. I don't know if she was hearing the same signal though that she had heard before this, because she has heard Waja before. I don't know. All that's kind of confusing.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the end of what we've seen with her for her storyline. And of course, at the end of it, when we seen, Trevante see the ship, we've seen a bunch of jump clips of all of them. Now, there's no way they all seen the same ship,
Yeah,
but there were you've seen them all kind of in distress.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
season one.
Wow, that was abrupt. I don't think I was. But okay, let's do this now. As a whole, knowing what we know from the beginning to end, I mean, like I said, we've been hot and cold on this, the series the whole way through. What would you give Steven? Like, if you were going to rate it 1 through 10, what would you give, this season one of Invasion? And it's kind of hard, but
That is tough. I would give it a 6.
okay.
Which is,
Eh,
a little bit better than average as far as the storytelling goes, and the actor. I like the actors and I like the characters that they introduced to us. But I think there was kind of a detrimental failing of storytelling in a lot of this. I mentioned last episode it was kind of writerly, where I could see what the writers were intending to do by how they were laid out the story. It's I like the idea of having an alien invasion story where you do get more in depth with the characters in and out, but they definitely made this show to where you wouldn't be able to fit all of the mysteries and all of the story in a first season,
yeah.
and they're leaving a lot of things up for following seasons, which you and I weren't sure we were even going to get until this last week, right? So
Yeah, I think it was like Wednesday they dropped it on us. So, and
yeah,
actually, I would, if I knew, I think it's George or Doug, one of the guys that actually comment on our videos, was the one that went ahead and dropped the knowledge on us
yeah.
that they went ahead and said, I seen it there before I had a chance to actually check it out myself.
What's
Um,
your rating?
Personally, I'm going to give it one number higher. I'm going to give it a 7.
Okay.
And reason being is how great they actually developed the characters.
Hmm.
They went ahead and, like I said earlier, the character development was phenomenal. But the show loses those other, 3 points because we really never got any type of invasion.
Yeah.
I mean, these alien creatures could have as well have been big bats that lived in a cave in Brazil.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we really didn't know what they were. So only reason we know they were the aliens because of the show was named Invasion for all intents and purposes.
I think Madeline has the right idea here. She says she definitely won't be watching season 2 until all episodes have dropped. Even then, maybe not. Thank you for the after show. Thank you, Madeline, for checking the
Yeah,
after
thank
show
you.
out each and every
Yeah,
week. But you're right. I think this show would have been far more enjoyable as a binge watch. Honestly, you wouldn't have felt that pain each and every week of like, wow, this thing is like dragging on. Like, okay,
yeah.
okay, and we certainly felt like that from time to time.
And
But if you
typically we're
were,
fans of the weekly release. This is one that
yeah,
didn't benefit from it.
no, it didn't. Um, which is weird because you would think a show like this would have a lot of speculation, a lot of meat on the bone, where you could talk about things moving forward, the way a lot of these shows are these days. but really there wasn't. I don't know why there wasn't. Honestly, I mean, you and I, there was enough for you and I to talk about the show and have an after show. But as far as theorizing what was going to take place next in the next episode, there wasn't a lot of that.
No, there really wasn't. There was only so many places they can go with it,
Yeah,
and really, it was so straightforward
right,
in the storyline telling. There was no wiggle room left or right. Like I know with like Lasso, for instance, for me, it was like I was like you joked at one point. I wrote the whole next season at one point.
yeah,
This one here, I've got no idea where they're gonna be going with the next episode because once again, we're still gonna have Trevante out. It looks like probably California somewhere. We're gonna have, Anisha and the kids up in New York at some point. And then we're still gonna have London and then Japan. So we're gonna have all these, still four storylines because we sunk it down to three. And now we actually may have another one. What's happening down in Brazil?
right.
So, I mean, they're making the story more broad, but not tying anything together.
Plus, Oklahoma. What about Sam Neill and all the folks in that town in Oklahoma?
I wasn't shocked we didn't see him again. I was that was
I
that
know, I
was
was
something
just
I
being facetious. I don't think we're ever going back to that.
we had someone comment on our video saying that they thought that we would see it back in this episode here. They'll kind of tie it back to
Right.
Oklahoma, which I mean,
I
man,
thought so too for a minute there when Casper was waking up and he's walking in that dark abyss. I thought maybe he was going to see Sam Neill's character, and that would have been a reveal like, whoa, what?
yeah, that would have been great, honestly.
Yeah,
That would have been really good. But I mean, that may be something they play with in the next season. Who knows?
I
Or
doubt
we may be completely finished with
it.
everything. No, I don't even trust their actual trailers anymore. Like if they show us somebody, I'm like, really? Or are we going to get them for 15 minutes and that's it? Or you know what I mean? If it's a new face, or if it's a face that may be familiar from something else.
You know what's interesting, and maybe another aspect of this show too, is that they did spend a lot of time with the characters, but at the same time, even though we spent all this time with the characters, I don't feel like we really got to know the characters very well, which is weird. You mentioned Ted Lasso. Like Ted Lasso, we can speculate on what the characters are going to do next from one episode to the next. Like, okay, well, they introduced this plot for this character. We have a good idea of how they're going to approach that, and you can kind of speculate from there, right?
Yeah.
With this show, it was kind of inconsistent as far as the characterization of something. You don't know where any of the characters were going to do at any one point. Like with Trevante, or the Anisha had those couple episodes where she just kind of left the family and was like dazed and confused, like working at
Yeah.
the hospital there for a bit. Like a lot of these characters were just kind of floating around in the wind a lot of the time, and you never could really speculate what the heck they were going to do from scene to scene or
The
episode to
only one
episode.
that was as straightforward as possible was Casper.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the most straightforward one. All the other ones, yeah, you never knew what was coming, and it
and
would
you
have it
never
would have
really
been
got to hear their inner thoughts, their inner dialogue. They're always either like running or confused, or you didn't get a lot of their inner desires, their feelings, only now and then. And one moment where they did is when Casper and Trevante were talking to each other, when Casper was, laid up in the MRI thing, and they were having that moment where they're going back and forth and telling each
yeah
other about their past. And I think that's why that was such a breath of fresh air, that scene, because it was like, finally, these characters are giving us something
yeah
besides just running for their lives or being confused, or that's pretty much all we got.
yeah. I mean, like I said, as a whole, I believe it's 7, but mainly because of the character development. Like, yeah, we didn't learn a bunch about the character, but what we did learn about the characters,
Yeah.
it made us truly, you know, get involved with the characters, enjoy the characters.
So season 2. I'm not going to ask you if we're going to confirm that we're doing a season 2 after show of Invasion, but will ask. I mean, when it comes up here, who knows when season 2 is going to premiere? Will you be checking out episode 1? Day of? Is it going to be something you're going to be looking forward to?
It's going to depend on our schedule.
Yeah,
If it's something that we're looking to do something, honestly, this show we did an after show on Invasion because we were in a lull. There was a gap between what we were looking to do and what just finished.
yeah,
And this was one of those ones where we're like, you know what? Who knows how many people are going to talk about it? We knew it was either going to be boom or bust. And honestly, it was somewhere in the middle. It wasn't quite boom or bust for us. The people that found it and people that do enjoy it have turned out more towards the end of it than they did at the beginning. So thank you, guys, for that. Uh, uh, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be one I'm going to seek out immediately. I mean, if we're doing it, obviously yes. But if we decide
Yeah.
we're not going to do a second season of it, my inkling is no.
Well, stay tuned for folks that have been with us here for the Invasion After Show. Definitely stick around for us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on all social media. We may have more news around Invasion here in the upcoming weeks, possibly after the holidays. So just stay with us on that. But now we will be moving on to The Witcher, 8 Days of Witcher, coming up next week. Actually, I think all of season 2 of The Witcher is going to be dropping on Netflix.
On the December 17th, all 8 episodes of The Witcher drops, and then we're gonna do 8 like 15 to 20-minute episodes of recapping each show or each episode as an 8 days all the way up to Christmas. So you're gonna get
Yep.
a show for us daily. So if you enjoy seeing us, awesome, you're gonna get us. If you don't enjoy getting alerts, I'm sorry, but they're
I'm
coming.
sorry. Yeah, it's going to be one a day there for at least the week leading up to Christmas. And then the week after Christmas, of course, is the Book of Boba Fett coming to Disney Plus. Chris and I, if you know us, we're huge Star Wars fans. So for us to get a little bit of Boba Fett backstory and continuing adventures is very exciting.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking forward to The Witcher, 'cause I think that The Witcher is going to be fun for us to do because
Yeah,
we haven't done something in that manner. The Book of Boba Fett, I'm like
you
inside
jazzed?
jump doing cartwheels because I'm happy. I'm ready for some more Star Wars content.
Yeah. All right. But other than that, check out dadnarok.com for everything that we do. Check out the rest of our YouTube page, everything else that we've done. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for Invasion Season 1.
Okay, so for the Invasion After Show Season 1, we go ahead and say keep it cheesy.
See ya.